Understanding the Book of Revelation Part 1. Introduction and Background Chapter 1. Opening the Scroll. Introduction to Revelation. What makes Revelation unique within the New Testament canon? The Book of Revelation stands as a remarkable, enigmatic work within the New Testament, a vivid tapestry of prophecy, symbolism, and poetry that has fascinated and bewildered readers for centuries. Known for its dramatic visions of heaven, earth, and the final triumph of good over evil, Revelation is unlike any other book in the Bible. Written by John during his exile on the island of Patmos, this text reaches beyond a mere narration of events, pulling readers into a grand cosmic drama where symbols, numbers, and colors reveal truths about humanity, divinity, and the ultimate fate of creation. We embark on a journey to understand why Revelation was written, who it was written for, and why its message endures. We begin with a question that sits at the heart of Revelation's mystery. Why does this book exist within the New Testament at all? Purpose of Revelation. Revelation was written during a period of intense persecution for early Christians. The Roman Empire, under the rule of emperors like Nero and Domitian, viewed Christianity as a threat to their absolute authority. The followers of Jesus, who preached peace and justice in contrast to the empire's demands for loyalty, were marginalized, harassed, and in some cases, brutally punished. It is within this climate of fear and oppression that Revelation offers its bold message of hope. A call to persevere, to hold fast to faith, and to trust that God's justice will prevail. Imagine, for a moment, a small group of believers gathered in secrecy, huddled together in the still of the night, reading this letter by candlelight. They would hear about the 7 churches, representing congregations spread across Asia Minor, each facing unique trials but united in their mission. They would be encouraged by visions of heavenly worship, the Lamb upon the throne, and promises of a new creation where there will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain. Revelation chapter 21 verse 4. For these early Christians, Revelation was a profound reminder that God's kingdom would outlast Rome's, that light would conquer darkness. Today, Revelation's purpose remains timeless. It calls each of us to examine our own lives, to ask where we stand in the battle between good and evil, and to hold fast to faith amidst trials. Historical context. Understanding Revelation requires a glimpse into its historical setting. The book was written around the end of the 1st century, a time marked by political turmoil and oppression. Christians, viewed as a peculiar sect, were often accused of disloyalty to the emperor, as they refused to participate in the imperial cult that worshipped Caesar as a god. John himself was exiled to Patmos, likely as a punishment for his faith and preaching. The Roman Empire was more than just a political power. It was a cultural and ideological force, a system that valued power, conquest, and dominance. Against this backdrop, Revelation's visions of beasts, dragons, and cosmic battles would have spoken powerfully to an audience struggling under the weight of oppression. When Revelation describes Babylon, a symbol of worldly corruption and decadence, readers in the 1st century would have seen clear parallels to Rome. Revelation thus served as both a critique of Rome's oppression and a vision of God's ultimate justice, a reminder that earthly empires are transient, while God's kingdom is eternal. Author and audience. The author of Revelation, traditionally identified as John the Apostle, was likely an influential leader within the early Christian community. His exile to Patmos suggests that he was seen as a threat to Roman authority, perhaps for his role in spreading a message that countered the imperial order. In his isolation, John received visions that he believed were directly from God, messages to share with fellow believers who faced persecution. John's audience included 7 churches in Asia Minor, as named in the opening chapters: Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. These were real congregations with specific strengths and struggles, each one grappling with issues of faithfulness, compromise, and endurance. Yet, while Revelation addresses these historical churches, its message transcends time and geography. As readers today, we are invited to see ourselves in these churches, to ask where our own faithfulness might falter, where we might need encouragement, and where we are called to stand firm. Moment of meditation. Be still and listen. Hear the voice of one who, in the quiet of exile, received visions that would echo through the ages. As we journey through Revelation, remember that we, too, are invited to be witnesses, not only of the past but of the future promise. Revelation calls us to see the world not as it appears, but as it truly is under the light of divine truth. Revelation is an enduring mystery. Revelation's place in the canon of Scripture was not without controversy. Its symbolic language and complex visions have sparked debates among scholars, theologians, and believers alike. The Church Fathers carefully considered Revelation's meaning and its alignment with the core message of Christianity before including it in the New Testament. Yet, Revelation's mystery has only fueled its enduring relevance, inviting each generation to seek its wisdom and wrestle with its implications. There is a reverence in not fully understanding Revelation, in allowing its images to remain partly veiled. It is a text that resists full comprehension, not because it lacks meaning, but because it calls us to approach it with humility. Scholars have interpreted its symbols in diverse ways, yet Revelation ultimately stands as an invitation, not to certainty, but to faith. Reflection. Embracing Revelation's purpose. What does it mean to live in light of Revelation's promise? For John's audience, it meant hope in the face of fear. For us, it may mean finding peace in times of uncertainty, strength in moments of doubt, and courage to stand against the forces that seek to undermine goodness in the world. As we continue our journey through Revelation, let us remember its purpose, to strengthen our spirits, open our eyes to a higher truth, and to remind us that, in the end, love triumphs over all. Reflection questions. 1. How does understanding Revelation's historical context deepen your perspective on its messages? 2. In what ways do the struggles of the early Christians resonate with challenges you face today? 3. How might approaching Revelation as a mystery enhance your faith? Chapter 2. The historical context of Revelation. How did the Roman Empire's control influence early Christian texts? As we dive into the book of Revelation, it is essential to place ourselves within the historical and cultural world of the first-century Christians. Imagine a community striving to live out the teachings of Jesus in the shadow of an empire that was as powerful as it was oppressive. The Roman Empire, with its vast reach and formidable influence, permeated every aspect of life. For the early Christians, it was a time of political tension, cultural conflict, and spiritual testing, a time when allegiance to Jesus often meant standing in opposition to the mightiest empire on earth. To understand Revelation, we must understand Rome. The language, imagery, and symbols that Revelation uses are often reflections or critiques of the Roman power structures, designed to resonate with its first readers. We will explore the socio-political landscape of the Roman Empire, how its values contrasted with Christian beliefs, and the unique challenges it presented to the followers of Christ. Rome as both power and deity. The Roman Empire wasn't just a government, it was a cultural and ideological force that demanded both loyalty and reverence. At the heart of Roman ideology was the imperial cult, a practice where emperors were worshipped as gods. The concept of an emperor as a divine figure was not merely symbolic, it was an expectation that all subjects would honor and even worship the emperor alongside traditional Roman gods. For the early Christians, this posed a profound dilemma. Jesus had taught them that there was only one God, and that Caesar, powerful as he was but a man. Allegiance to Christ meant rejecting the idolatrous practices of emperor worship. To declare, Jesus is Lord, was an act of defiance against a society that demanded they declare, Caesar is Lord. This bold declaration set them apart and placed them at odds with Roman authority, and it would become the reason why so many Christians faced persecution. Imagine the courage required to stand firm in faith under such pressure. For the early church, Revelation provided a vision of a greater kingdom, a kingdom that would endure beyond Rome. The book's powerful imagery reassured these believers that though they faced oppression now, they belonged to a realm far greater than any earthly empire. A world of persecution and martyrdom. The persecution of Christians during the first century varied across the empire. Under certain emperors, such as Nero and Domitian, persecution was severe and widespread. Nero, notorious for his cruelty, is said to have blamed Christians for the Great Fire of Rome, subjecting them to brutal punishments. Decades later, Emperor Domitian's reign saw the empire tighten its control over dissenters, including Christians who refused to participate in the imperial cult. Domitian's attempts to solidify his own divinity often meant that Christians who refused to worship him as a god were punished, exiled, or executed. In this context, Revelation's dramatic scenes of beasts, dragons, and fallen cities take on new meaning. To the early Christians, these symbols were more than mystical figures, they were metaphors for Rome's oppressive power. The beast, described in Revelation, could be seen as a stand-in for the empire, an entity that demanded allegiance through force and fear. Revelation's readers would have recognized this imagery as a reflection of their real-life struggles, a coded message that called them to resist even unto death. The power of apocalyptic imagery. Revelation belongs to a genre known as apocalyptic literature, a form of writing that uses vivid symbols and grand visions to communicate truths about God's plan for humanity. Apocalyptic literature emerged as a means for oppressed communities to express hope and faith in the midst of persecution. By using symbolic language, authors could speak truths that might otherwise be too dangerous to state openly. To a modern reader, the symbolic language of Revelation can seem mysterious or even intimidating. But for John's original audience, it was a language of survival, a way to communicate hope without inciting further Roman suspicion. Imagery of a dragon, a beast, or Babylon would have allowed Christians to talk about Rome's tyranny in a veiled way, affirming that God would one day overthrow such power. Moment of meditation. Picture a humble congregation of believers, huddled in secrecy, reading John's words by candlelight. Each verse pulses with a sense of urgency and hope, a lifeline for those living in the shadow of empire. In their ears, Revelation's imagery is not cryptic but clear, a vivid reminder that in God's timing, justice will reign, and no earthly empire can withstand the power of the Almighty. The message of hope amid oppression. For the early Christians, Revelation was not a text of fear but one of profound hope. Though Rome seemed all-powerful, Revelation assured them that their suffering was temporary. Revelation's vision of a new heaven and a new earth promised that God's kingdom would replace the corrupt kingdoms of the world. This promise of redemption and renewal gave early believers the strength to endure. In our own world, where systems of power can seem just as overwhelming, Revelation's message endures. It challenges us to see beyond the present moment, to place our trust in a reality that transcends what we see. Rome has fallen, yet the words of Revelation remain, a reminder that human empires, no matter how powerful, are fleeting. Reflection. Seeing our own empires, consider for a moment the empires we face today. They may not take the form of an ancient kingdom, but each of us lives under the influence of systems and ideologies that demand loyalty. Whether it is the pressure of materialism, the pursuit of status, or the idolization of political power, we too face forces that seek our allegiance. Revelation calls us to examine where our loyalty lies and to trust in a kingdom that endures. Revelation reminds us that, like those early Christians, we can find strength and hope in a God who reigns above all earthly powers. As we continue through this journey, may we find encouragement to stand firm, to see through the illusion of temporary power, and to place our faith in the eternal. Reflection questions. 1. How does understanding Rome's influence deepen your reading of Revelation's symbols? 2. In what ways do you see empires of power and control in your own life? 3. How can Revelation's message of God's ultimate victory offer comfort amidst modern challenges? Chapter 3. Who was John the Apostle? Exploring the life of John, the exiled visionary on Patmos in the grand narrative of Revelation, there is a single figure who stands as both witness and messenger, a figure whose experiences shaped the writing of this book: John the Apostle. John's life is woven into the story of early Christianity, and his journey, from a fisherman on the shores of Galilee to a prisoner exiled on a barren island, reflects the call, courage, and conviction of the earliest followers of Jesus. To understand Revelation, it is essential to understand John, the man who received its visions and carried its mysteries. The journey from fisherman to apostle. John was originally a fisherman, called from his nets to become a fisher of men by Jesus himself. John's early life along the Sea of Galilee was humble, centered around his family and the demanding work of fishing. But when he and his brother James heard the call of Jesus, they left their livelihoods behind to follow him. John would go on to become one of Jesus' closest companions, known as the disciple whom Jesus loved, John chapter 13 verse 23, a title that hints at an intimate spiritual connection. As one of Jesus' 12 disciples, John witnessed miracles, teachings, and moments of profound revelation. He stood at the foot of the cross when others had fled, watched over Mary, the mother of Jesus, and was among the first to see the empty tomb. From his first-hand experiences with Jesus, John's faith was shaped not by hearsay, but by the daily journey of walking beside the Son of God. These experiences of closeness, loss, and resurrection gave John a perspective marked by both depth and devotion. John's role in the early church after Jesus' ascension. John emerged as a leader in the early Christian community, serving with Peter and other apostles to spread the gospel in Jerusalem and beyond. Tradition holds that John eventually settled in Ephesus, a vibrant city in Asia Minor, where he became a pillar of the church. His role was not only to preach but also to support a community facing growing opposition from both Jewish and Roman authorities. Ephesus, like many cities of that time, was a place of cultural mixing, intellectual activity, and religious diversity, a fitting place for John to minister and write. It was here in Ephesus that John is thought to have composed the Gospel of John and 3 epistles, works that emphasize love, light, and the divinity of Christ. John's writings reflect a deep understanding of Jesus not just as a historical figure, but as the eternal Word of God who brought light into the world. These themes would carry into Revelation, where John's visions of Christ as both Lamb and King reveal a portrait of divine authority and sacrificial love. Exile on Patmos. A season of revelation. John's ministry was not without its trials. Under the Roman Emperor Domitian, Christians faced waves of persecution, especially those who were leaders and outspoken about their faith. Domitian, like some emperors before him, demanded that all subjects honor him as a god. Christians who refused to offer sacrifices to the emperor or participate in the imperial cult were seen as rebels, threats to the state. John's uncompromising commitment to Jesus made him a target of this persecution. As punishment, John was exiled to the island of Patmos, a rocky and desolate place used by Rome as a penal colony. Patmos was isolated, a stark contrast to the bustling cities John had known. Yet, it was in this isolation, on a barren island, that God would reveal a vision so grand, so vivid, that it would resonate through generations. Revelation begins with John, in the Spirit on the Lord's day. Revelation chapter 1 verse 10. Encountering the risen Christ, who stands amidst 7 golden lampstands representing the churches. It was a revelation not only of future events but of eternal truths, a vision that would offer hope to the suffering and a promise of God's ultimate victory. The humility of the visionary. Despite the magnitude of these visions, John never portrays himself as a figure of power. In Revelation, he is a humble servant, a fellow sufferer, and a witness to Christ's glory. Unlike some prophets who might seek personal gain or recognition, John appears as a mere recipient of divine messages, careful to emphasize that the words are not his own. I, John, your brother and partner in the tribulation and the kingdom and the patient endurance that are in Jesus. Revelation chapter 1 verse 9. He writes, aligning himself with those who are also enduring hardship. This humility invites readers to trust John not as a distant prophet but as a fellow believer, someone who shares in the struggles and questions of faith. His experience on Patmos, his willingness to receive visions, and his reverent awe in the face of the divine lend revelation a profound sense of authenticity. Moment of meditation. Imagine John on the shores of Patmos, his gaze turned toward the heavens as visions unfold before him. In the quiet of isolation, he encounters eternity. May we, too, find clarity in moments of solitude, and may our hearts, like John's, remain open to the mysteries of God. John's legacy and the message of Revelation. John's life of faithfulness, his willingness to embrace exile for the sake of truth, and his openness to divine revelation offer us a powerful example. Through his writings, John encourages believers to persevere, to hold fast to faith, and to look beyond present trials. Revelation's message is not merely one of prophecy but of endurance, a call to see life through the lens of God's eternal kingdom. For John, Revelation was more than a vision of the future, it was an invitation to live in the hope of Christ's return. As we read this book today, we are invited to share in that hope, to remember that God's promises are true, and to walk forward in the assurance that, even in exile, even in isolation, we are never alone. Reflection questions. 1. What aspects of John's life resonate with your own spiritual journey? 2. How might John's experience of exile and isolation inform the way you view challenges in your life? 3. In what ways can John's faith and humility inspire your own approach to seeking God's presence?